All right, everybody, another week is upon us, and that means we need to take time to look back at the previous week of
Mhm.
Rivals League action. I am Righteous. Joining with me is CB the Barbarian, his best Michael Jordan impression, the flu game.
Yeah,
So he
we'll
might
see.
not be very talkative. But this is Rivals Runback. We're going to be doing our power rankings and predictions and all of that good stuff. So tune in because uh, it'll definitely be
Some people will be
it'll
upset.
be a spicy one. Some people will be upset. So we start this off with a look at the standings, of course, and for the first time, I think there are no ties in any of the positions
Yeah,
for the standings. Also to note, Eclipse Valkyries are rocking their new logo, so say goodbye to the pink and hello to the gold and what I can assume to be midnight, but I'm not sure. But it's gonna be Dignawash, Roar, Shinobi, Eclipse Valkyries, Patriots, and NG SEAL Team 8, rounding out the pole positions here.
yeah. It's these last 2 weeks obviously are gonna shake some stuff up. I believe Dignawashed is the only team currently locked into playoffs, so they can't drop below fourth. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. They might even be higher than that, but either way, they're locked into playoffs. Nobody is knocked out yet, so
Yep.
potential chance for other people to lock playoffs in or get knocked out maybe tonight, depending. Um, but we'll see how the games go this week.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the games go this week. We have to talk a little bit about how the games went as we go through these power rankings. We do that next.
Yeah.
This is my show, and I forgot how it
Mhm.
goes.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
been it's been a long week.
Let's see what we got
Yes,
here.
Sammy, SEAL team actually still can make playoffs if you win out and
Mhm.
have some teams above you lose. So,
Yep.
starting off the power rankings. Speaking of SEAL teammate, Andreas coming in at sixth. Top was a tough one for me. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Top,
Doing
top,
our
and mid
individual
were the
rankings.
two very difficult roles. A lot of people that felt like this has to be wrong, right? But it's one of those things with only 6 people.
So, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what Andreas did well. I thought his landing phase was extremely good, except for when he got over aggressive a couple times. I just remember back to that Poppy game, was getting the better of the 1v1 and then started losing it due to outside pressures or just overextending. Um, you know, he could have been higher. I think he was higher in my
There
rankings,
were a few
but
that we
only
differed
by
on a decent amount.
I think it was only by one spot. So, like I said, this is tough. I think Andreas showed a lot of promise for his first game in Rivals League. Could potentially quickly move up depending on how the rest of the season unfolds.
Yeah, only a 1 week for Andrews, so it's not the worst. I think it's just top was one of those two toughest roles this week uh, for us. So we'll see. We'll maybe have to justify some of the other ones, and that'll make more sense. But uh, we'll see who we got
Or
at.
not. We'll see. You
We'll
let
see.
us know.
Or just be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, let us know. Alcoholic in fifth. Alcoholic's a tough one because it was a weird week for Shinobi, but that was mostly around the bottom side of the map. Alcoholic's just kind of been either hitting home runs or striking out. In my opinion, he looks really good, knows where to go, or he kind of gets a little bit lost in the sauce and doesn't know his lane matchups. He did enough to secure that fifth spot over Andreas, but I'd like to see a little bit more out of this player moving forward, especially because Shinobi is a playoff favorite for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think alcoholic. I was a little bit higher on him,
Mm-hmm.
and just because I think game one this last week, solo won them the game. At least kept
Yeah.
them in the game for a very long time on the Mundo, I think. Um, so that's why I had him a little bit higher. But then you look at the second and third games, and maybe not so much. So how they played in game one versus game two was kind of night and day. Um, but enough to stay out of the sixth spot. So yeah, just pretty volatile up there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a tale of the top lane with that series. Top kind of carried for both sides.
Yeah.
Key at 4. So this is where I think he's starting to get a little bit spicy. Last week, I believe he was number 1. Let me fact check
I think
myself.
so. I think so. With only six people
Yeah,
and six teams,
yeah,
it's interesting to see how much people move around compared to some of the other leagues we've done with
yeah.
like 12 teams.
How volatile it is.
Hmm.
It was, a lot of it comes down to that game too, that questionable draft choice of picking the Kale into the Renekton. It went about as good as could be expected, which is the Kale got ran over. I don't think that's Key's fault unless he was the one picking for the Kale. I knew they wanted late game insurance. It was a near impossible task to kind of deal with that. And then Storm just looked like the better top laner in both those games.
Yeah, that was a tough one. The opposing team played it very well into how you
Mm,
should play against the kill, and Key's gonna drop 3 spots. I don't want to say strictly because of that game, but almost.
yeah, it was tough. So we are now into the top half at number 3. Gonna be Diet Coke. So Diet Coke, the fan club in Banter making his appearance at 3. I believe this is the highest we've ever had Diet Coke. Previously, the highest was 4. So talking about what Diet Coke does well, I don't think his landing phase is all that great, and part of that could be just the point discrepancy. He's not expected to be the most mechanically gifted or like top lane carry. But he nullifies the opposing lanes well, and he plays team fights extremely well, and did enough to get 3rd here in this edition of Rivals Runback's Power Rankings.
Yeah, that's why this one was tough for me to rank. Like Diet Coke and Andrews both. If you just watch maybe the first 10 minutes of every game, you'd put Andrews above Diet Coke maybe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but once you kind of get into that mid game and late game, Diet Coke plays it very well. So usually on tank duty, and I think plays it very well once I get into the mid late game. So um, I think a consistent piece for their team by no means has to be the carry. They have some other carriers, sure, on their roster. So uh, no, top 3 makes sense for me.
Yep, makes
Carries.
sense for me as well. And then number 2, BK's. I believe he was number 2 last week as well. Holds that spot, doesn't move up, doesn't move down. Like we had mentioned with alcoholic. It was kind of a tale of the top lane for that series. If your top laner, respective top laner, popped off, you were gonna win the game. And BK's did it twice, and looked pretty good in both of those games. Game 1 probably wants to forget, but it is what it is.
Yeah, hopefully somebody in the locker room is saying maybe we hold Riven for ARAM or something for fun. I don't know. But no, it's a tough game 1 for BKs, but the second game hard popped off. Third game played it really well also. So makes sense they stay in the top 3 and not 3.
And then
That must mean
the last remaining top laner is of course Storm. Uh, has been number 1 except for that last week where he dipped down to 3 and took it upon himself to remind everybody why he is considered one of the best tops in Rivals League. Not gonna say drafted for game 2, but it was. But he played it extremely well. His team played it extremely well, and he's probably his best series since week 1 against Patriots.
yeah. I mean, look strong. Look like at points like he didn't even have to try too hard in that game 2 after Renekton got a couple kills. It was just kind of taking the game over. So makes sense. Storm back in the first spot. We'll see if he can keep it the rest of the split.
We will see indeed. Next up, gonna be our jungle power rankings. And it's gonna be Doki slotting in at 6. Aurora, of course, had to deal with point change to Tyler Durden. We thought it might have been a shakeup in the top or 80 carry positions, but it said Doki subs himself in for Cry. And to his credit, the Amumu looked fine, in my opinion. The TP smite thing that he loves didn't look that great. And, it's a lot of how last week went could maybe potentially probably fall on Doki's shoulders.
Yeah, I'm all for getting spicy with it no flash, but I don't know if TP was the right one. I think we saw him use it like twice, maybe.
maybe.
But either way, just I think a rough showing for RAR overall. So isn't that the thing? Whenever you lose, you just say it's jungle diff. So
Yeah,
naturally he'll get sixth.
yeah. So moving on to 5. Was 5 last week, 5 this week. Pandorum. I think Pandorum's early game tracking, especially around objective timers, is really good. What I don't like though is the way he plays comes at a sacrifice for his own tempo. He's falling behind in CS, and into the mid to late game, his team kind of struggles with that, especially on the pick like Nunu. Now Nunu can be that early game nuisance, but if the Nunu's not farming and either not doing damage or not tanking, then it kind of falls off, and that's kind of what we've seen from Pandorum's playstyle. So, some room for improvement for sure, but not quite as bad as the player below him.
Yeah, I mean, Pandorum I think was close to maybe creeping up a little bit higher. The Pantheon game was really good. It's just the other two, uh, not so great. I think they played back to back Nunu weeks. Um,
Yep.
so I don't know, just a Nunu lover. Nunu feels like it's super impactful or has like zero impact. So unfortunately, this week was maybe the latter.
All right, into 4th we go. It's gonna be I'm stealthy. So stealthy, for the first time since week 2, gonna drop all the way down to 4, kind of like key in the top lane rankings. It's the volatility of just having 6 teams. Stealthy had an opportunity with the shakeup that happened with Shinobi's bot lane, to kind of put the team on the back instead. He struggled as well as mid lane. I don't know if it was just a tandem thing. I don't know if mid was over aggressing and stealthy was struggling because of it. Whatever it may be, the mid jungle synergy just didn't look like it had been the past couple weeks, and I got to take a dip because of it.
Yeah, I can see Stealthy going right back up into the top half. Weird seeing them drop below the middle line. Just kind of a tough
Yeah.
week. I feel like it popped off on every other time they played J4. Just game 2 this week wasn't the best.
Hmm.
Um, but it's okay. Fourth isn't the worst, right?
4th isn't the worst. That is true. Moving on to the top 3, Ribeye, I believe, also gonna make his highest appearance so far in the power rankings. Similar to Pandorum, Ribeye does a lot in the early game. The difference being, I guess, like the lack of gold isn't felt nearly as much. It was probably the least CS I've ever seen a Fiddle
Mm-hmm.
um, accrue over the course of a game. However, he had like an almost 30 KP at the end of it, doing a ton of damage, and definitely popped off.
Yeah, the fiddle one trick player, of course. No, had some nasty ults in that first game, and then game 2 was okay, and then game 3 on the Sejuani I think uh, was another good game. So if you're gonna have
Mhm.
2 out of 3 good games, you deserve to be in the top half.
Uh, no Sejuani game for Ribeye. It was Pantheon and then Volibear. Pantheon looked really good. Volibear was whatever. It block.
What?
Gonna be a
Nah,
two.
Diet Coke played volleyball. Am I tripping or
What?
are you tripping?
No,
Game
Diet
3?
Coke played Shen. Oh, looking at the wrong week. That's me. That's on me. That's on me. My bad. My bad. My bad.
Crazy.
That is crazy. Apologize, Ribeye and CB. It block at 2. Making his reappearance after a
Mm-hmm.
brief hiatus. Not number 1, like he had been in the previous iteration. I think he was number 1 in week 1, number 2 in week 2, so it goes back in at week 2, or at number 2 in week 4. He does a lot for his team. He, he's not asked to carry or play these carry jungles. He's kind of just there to set up team fights, make sure that Storm and KDN and sorry, Kaden and Riley Sauce can pop off in those, and does a good job.
Yeah, I mean, the game 1 was fine, more of a assist player on the Lilia that game, and then game 2 uh, had a good showing on helping Storm in the top lane. Kind of punished that kill pick, so Itblock at 2 makes sense. You can make the argument for 1 just because who we have at 1 has less games, but either way, Number
I
two
will
feels
say,
good.
I mean, the Lilia didn't look like the best pick in the world. It was a hard draft to pull off by Dig. He made it work though. He kind of acted as the team's only engage with a lot of flash sleeps. And then he ended that game almost 6,000 gold ahead of Doki. So he was still making it work. But yeah, Eyesight making his debut in jungle here at Rivals League. I don't know if he'll be moving back to mid this week. That's something you'll have to track. But looked extremely good in their performance against Shinobi.
Yeah, three very solid games. Being that tank engage, support ish style, take all the kills jungler. So yeah, we'll see. It's tough to, if you get ranked first, to go back to a different role. So we'll see how they align their team up. I think we see them tomorrow, so uh, we'll get to see. But yeah, good showings on all three engaged tanks that Eyesight played this week.
All right,
Last
and
week.
into the middle lane we go, and then we'll just go from there. It's gonna be Ray at 6 now. Mid, like we had said previously, probably the hardest of
Yeah,
these power rankings to do.
very tough.
Um, it was tough because somebody had to go last, and I don't know. I can't speak for CB, but when I was filling out mine, I was like, man, it just feels bad putting X player here. And you know, I think Ray did fine. He kind of got eaten up by the Pantheon against Dig. Um, only because he got out pressured. Like if you look at his scores, you look at his damage and everything, like he kept up every game. It just he didn't have a high impact. And so he goes in at 6 this week.
Yeah, it was just tough every time I put somebody on my rankings. It was like, no, they should be a little bit higher. Everyone just kept moving around, so no one felt like they really had a terrible week for mid lane. What Raid do the Galio and the TF. I mean the games were fine, nothing crazy. Didn't get like hard stomped or anything, but just maybe comparatively the least impact compared to the other ones. Close.
Yeah, it was also the first week we saw this player not get the Cassante that they're known for.
True.
So something interesting to note as well. At 5, gonna be Millie Bobby Brown. So, Millie Bobby Brown, much like their playstyle, very volatile in these rankings. I don't think they've held the same spot for more than 1 week in a row. This is the lowest this player has been, and like I said, when I was talking about stealthy, something about the mid jungle synergy just didn't look like it was hitting, and a couple of gamble plays this player made ended up coming up short, and the score lines and everything like that suffered because of that.
Yeah, this one was tough. This was the one that was like, no way. They go from what one or two last week to
Yeah,
5. It's just the nature of only having 6 people.
yeah.
And just so every week, if you have a less than great performance and people around you have a little bit better performance, then people are gonna swap around a lot. So yeah, this one felt bad, but just tough to rank this week.
I mean, to their credit, their Echo had looked good again in that game one, but then after that, it was just it was swing and a miss for Millie Bobby Brown into the new substitute Patriots mid laner. At number 4, we got Frost. Last time we saw this player, it was in what was it?
Top, I think.
It top coming in on a late notice because of an E-sub
Mm.
situation. Didn't look great in top, but looked a lot better in mid, for sure.
Yeah, at least on the Swain. The Swain looked really good. I have terrible memory, so I don't know what else they played, but the Ari and the Quirky. They seemed
Yeah.
fine in lane. Maybe not the most impact out of lane, but that whole series was kind of not close games for all three of them, in a way. So, uh, just because of the Swain game I think is why Frost ended up in that 4 spot, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, I mean the Swain looked extremely good. The Ari game wasn't their best, also wasn't their worst. Made a lot of nice picks. Um, Let Outrage kind of claw their way back into that one. And then game 3, it was a bad draft. We just got to be honest with ourselves. No CC,
Mm.
and the Corki looked fine in lane, but um, it is what it is. Caden at 3, also making their highest um, placement in these power rankings. You know, Caden, when he's on champs that pop off that he's comfortable with, aka the Yone and this week the Pantheon, he looks really good. Off those champs leaves a little bit to be desired, but doesn't lose Dignawash their games, um, and that's kind of a strength almost, because a lot of the times these mid laners, if they're making coin flip plays or they're on stuff that they're just not comfortable with, they're kind of a detractor to their game, their team's game plan, and so Caden just being able to kind of get carried is a skill in of itself, and you got to do what you got to do to get some wins. And so Caden at 3.
Yeah, getting kind of in the boat of tough-ish strength because one very much pop-off performance, and then second game didn't really have to do too much on the Sunbot Annie, but
Yeah.
didn't play poorly by any means. So Pantheon game gonna bump him up into the top half. Rumors are, I think it was said that might not be here this week. I think maybe.
Definitely not going to be here this week.
Okay. So, you get ranked in the top half and then you get to take a week off, I think is how it works.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be Tarin, something with a T. Let me look. Tarin. I was right the second time. Lord JK at 2. So Sight debuts at 1 in jungle. Lord JK debuts at 2 in mid. I got a peek behind the curtain in our interview with Sight after that matchup. That series, the game 1 draft left a lot to be desired. Lord JK wasn't put on comfort and didn't perform horribly, but didn't really pop off. But games 2 and 3 looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, didn't have a terrible game 1, more of just like a supportive looking stat line. The RA looked really good, and then I forget who they played game 3.
Swain made it borderline unplayable for the opposing team in late game team fights.
Yeah, true. So no crazy stat line, but allowed the rest of their team to do really well. So yeah, you think if you have a player in the number 2 spot, number 1 spot, maybe you run that back, but we'll see. But yeah, Lord JK debut, right? Yeah, so debut at 2.
Yep. That means number 1 holding it for the second week in a row. No, actually rising up from 3rd. It's been back and forth. It's been 3-1, 3-1 for SolarM, but SolarM taking over that number 1 spot again. Yeah.
Top half, no matter what. Got the Galio. I feel like they play Galio every week, maybe. Maybe I'm tripping.
The last couple of weeks.
Yeah. It looked solid on that. The Akali was okay. And then the Lux, I mean, just taking people half health late game into the interesting team comp choices of their opponent. So, no, SolarM looked good. Number 1 definitely feels right.
Yeah. All right. You think we can crank out the rest of the position and team power rankings before moving on to predictions?
I think we're going to end up hitting a forced upon us break if we do that. So, 3 men.
Take it out.
Yeah, that way we can run the 80 carry support and team rankings and predictions. So,
all right.
Go ahead.
You heard it from the man. We're gonna take a quick break and we're back. Stick around for what he just said. sure what you guys see on your screen, but I believe it's gonna be the 80 carry slash. I think it's just bottom lane power rankings now.
Oh, it's gonna make me restart it. We'll see.
80 carries are multi-talented, so um,
Yeah, that'd have been
I
too
don't think we've
easy.
APC yet.
We're getting
As
there.
we get there, we're getting
Boom.
there.
We made it. We made it. We
Gonna
made it.
be Sapphire Gem. Now, alluded to before, uh, medical emergency of some sort made it so Sapphire Gem had to step up in the 80 carry role for the first 2 games. And honestly, performed pretty well for not being her main role. It just wasn't better than the 5 other bottom laners that week, unfortunately. So Sapphire Gem is 6.
Yeah. I don't think had a bad 2 games by any means. Seemed like a decent 80 carry. Just yeah, comparatively to the other ones this week. 6th is where they're gonna land. I assume they go back to support.
Yeah.
As that was just kind of an emergency situation. So, top 6 for your 1 week off roll.
Top 6. 5th. Previously number 1 has fallen. Tyler Durden at 5. The worst week we've seen from Roar, and probably the worst week we've seen from Tyler Durden as well. Wasn't able to get played around nearly as often as the previous 2 weeks. Part of it might just be because of Doki putting himself in the lineup. It might just be, it could be a whole bunch of things. We're not here to guess. We're only here to say that it was a rough week for Tyler Durden.
Yeah, it's I mean, these rankings are always a mix of a bunch of stuff. Obviously, it's an average of our 2 rankings mixed with stats, mixed with how the week went. I don't think either one of us would just, I guess, like solo put Tyler as the 5th best 80 carry necessarily.
No.
Just by how this last week went and the stats and how the game shook out against Dig. Number 5 is where Tyler's going to land. I don't see Tyler staying at the 5th or 6th spot. Obviously, you played the number 1 team, so just a rough week last week.
Yeah, rough week. I mean, the Draven looked fine. It just didn't really get played around. And then the Jinx in game 1, it was a tough game to be a Jinx. I'll just say that. Number 4 is Outrage, making their debut with SEAL Team 8. There was a case to have him in top 3, put him at 4. One of the more consistent players of their team. A lot of their performance in game 3, I think, falls on that draft. It was going to be really hard to be a Kaisa in that situation. But outside of that, games 1 and 2, the Ashe and was it the Varus? Now that I can't remember.
Tristana game
really
2.
good.
I don't know. Ashe, Tristana, and somebody else, but I know that
Oh,
Tristana looked very
Yeah.
good in that
Yeah.
game too. Was able to be aggressive as Outrage sometimes tends to be in that. I think they paired it with a Enchanter, but
Soraka.
yeah, so
It was
was able to go in and live and just kill. So
Yeah.
popped off that game. That's why you're going to be at 4 and agree. I think the argument could have been made for top 3, but you're just 1 week in, so we'll see. We'll see how this week goes.
Into the top 3 we go, making their highest appearance, much like their mid laner, is going to be Riley Sauce 21. Unlike their mid laner, I think Riley has kind of been a pleasant surprise in my eyes, where I didn't expect a lot from a low point 80 carry in this league specifically. I thought the 80 carry looked like one of the better positions. But week in, week out, Riley Sauce shows up at team fights, does really well. I mean, the laning phase, hit or miss. But when it matters most, Riley Sauce is putting out the damage.
Yeah, I was very high on Riley this week. I feel like we don't see Riley really have a terrible game.
No.
All good games, especially this week. Both really good games. Sometimes maybe he's overshadowed by other people on Dig that also do well on a week-to-week basis. So, I guess that's not the worst problem to have. But top 3, makes a lot of sense this weekend. I mean, you're looking up the board, you can't see everybody yet, but I'm seeing a lot of good players in this 80 carry role. So um, even if you're in the bottom half, it still feels like you're in good company.
Yeah. Number 2, the man, the myth, the legend, Ferdy, still hasn't quite been able to get the top spot. I thought it might have been this week, but Ferdy consistent as always. When he pops off, he looks really good. Doesn't really have any bad games. The key for Eclipse Valkyries, like we said in previous weeks, make sure this man is involved in all of your team fights and skirmishes. Otherwise, it gets a little dicey for him. If he could do that a little bit more often, I mean, he's definitely top 3 from here on out, and probably unless they have a major collapse.
No, I think top 3 is that's the bar. So we expect
Yeah.
Freddie to stay in the top 3. I feel like the only times where like I kind of had a rough game was I feel like it's whenever Freddie's on Vayne and the team comp just doesn't work in the favor. So not to say Freddie can't play Vayne by any means, but just
He had that one
coincidentally,
popped off when he had a
just
Galio.
coincidentally, yeah. So I mean, still second place after dropping a donut in game 2. So
Game 1, or not game 1, position 1. It's gonna be another new player, Nike Dragon, debuting with the Patriots. Probably the best that Death Knight has looked, and maybe it's because of this player being in their lane. A big part of why they're able to stay in game 1 was Nike Dragon, and then games 2 and 3, yes, BK's popped off in those games, but Nike Dragon looked extremely good as well.
yeah, 3 very good games. You look at the other people this week; they had 1 or 2 good games. Nike had 3 very solid performances. So you could say a little skewed because they've only played the 1 week, and we'll see if Nike Dragon stays in the rotation, goes back to that sub spot. But either way, after playing 1 week, 3 games, popping off every game, you're gonna be number 1.
There you have it. The bottom lane carry positions. That means support CB's
Most important
favorites.
role.
We always say best for last, right?
Yeah.
Entropy kind of filling in a spot. I believe it was short notice the way that it was, made out to be. Uh, Looked okay. A spot start like that is kind of tough to pull off. I don't know how many games Sapphire Gem and Entropy have together, as they both primarily play support. But did a lot of good things, kept the vision up. Other than that, it was kind of rough for Shinobi this past week.
Yeah, I didn't like hard feed, didn't do anything too crazy. Just comparatively to the other 5, gonna slot in at 6th. So I assume Entropy goes back to the sub spot, but we'll see.
Yep, we will see. Also, for those of you confused, because Sapphire Gem played both 80 carry and support, we went with the majority of the games played. So you're not going to see Sapphire Gem here for their 1 game. Squeewee making their debut with Nefarious Gaming. I'm not in the business of comparing players. I think that's in bad taste. But with Outrage, it remains to be seen how Blackout would have done with Outrage. But Squeewee slotting in there. The Soraka looked really good, looked really comfortable. And then outside of that, it seemed to struggle. Part of it could be champ selection. Part of it could be I don't know. I've never seen this player before, so maybe it's a new experience. But good enough for 5.
Yeah, it's tough to gauge it when you have the other support played with a different 80 carry.
Yeah.
So who plays tonight? We might not know, or maybe I'll know. You'll know tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
I think they're tomorrow.
Monday.
Whatever day. Yeah.
Whatever
No, we'll
day.
see. So I think a decent showing. We'll say maybe not the most chemistry with the bot laner yet. So only up from here, maybe, probably.
Maybe, probably, hopefully. If you're Nefarious Gaming, hoping for a playoff push, you hope everybody on this list goes a little bit higher in the remaining weeks. Jonakis going to be slotted in at 4. did a lot of good things, but like I said, probably the least amount of bot lane presence their junglers had up to this point. Um, Made their same map movements, same map rotations. It just didn't result in the win. So Jonas a 4.
Yeah, I mean, 4 still not obviously a terrible spot to be in. I think Jonikis was what 1 or 2 last week. So
Number one.
just look, the team overall looked a little different, which we don't gotta get all back up into that. So um, we'll call it a fluke week. We'll give RAR their fluke week. They looked very good the first 2 weeks. Jonikis, of course, being one of the leaders in that, being the support role. So we'll see on stream here in about 15 20 minutes if they can bounce back.
Yeah, we will see. It is a kind of sneaky important matchup for both of those teams.
Hmm.
At 3, going to be Death Knight, like I said, with Nike Dragon. Probably the best this player has looked. We got a little glimpse into the comms and preparation that he made for Patriots between games 1 and games 2. And it kind of showed in the play. It looked really confident. The Braum looked really good. And they even in the loss, the Thresh was making a lot of plays as well.
Yeah, we'll see if this was a nature of either the opponent, all of the role swaps. Obviously, you had a sub 80 carry come in, so Death Knight looked very good all 3 games. We'll see whoever he ends up playing with in the bot lane if they keep that trend going and continue to climb up the ranks.
Into the top 2 at number 2, it is going to be Pillar. Um, Much like the person at the top of this list, the Pillar makes Pillar's the kind of conductor with Ribeye. Ribeye does a lot of action early, but I think it's bolstered with the presence of Pillar. Pillar likes to roam early and often, always at the grubs, always at the skirmishes and fights, and so high presence player as a support is a plus. At number 2, he goes.
Yeah, put Pillar in the same boat as Ferdy. Kind of expect them to stay in the top 3. Just maybe comparatively, the player that got first is very much deserved. And the game 2 for EV last week was kind of rough. So no, Pillar, the volatile support, uh, staying at the 2 spot. So that must mean that number 1.
It must mean number 1, probably one of the best names we have in Rivals League. Gonna be Rogue Gorilla. I think it died only 3 times across both games. Two very different playstyles as well. The anti-engage with the Renata hit a lot of big Renata ults in that game. And then on the Rakan also looked extremely good with a 14 KDA.
Yeah, big fan of both of those champions. So maybe that's why I skewed the vote. No, looked good. Both champions, 2 different playstyles, especially on the Rakan. I think only died once. So yeah, makes sense that they're number 1 team, number 1 support. Naturally.
Naturally.
What do we got? We got teams, yeah.
Team power rankings. Some shakeups. Just be prepared. I don't want to spoil anything, but brace yourselves. NG SEAL teammate, not a shakeup. Winless through 3 weeks. Did pick up their first game win. So kind of momentum to build off of. We'll have to see if they can make magic happen the remaining 2. But for the purposes of the power ranking, gonna stay at 6.
Yeah, I mean, tough to not be at 6. Obviously, these are different than the standings. I think maybe one of the weeks they were the exact same, but these are kind of our power rankings. Can't really bump someone up when they haven't won a match. But with the roster changes, they took a game. Do they have the momentum? They can still make playoffs. I think they have to win out to make playoffs, so I'm pretty sure.
CB, I'm in the business of throwing you under the bus for
Uh-oh.
these.
Okay, I don't remember what I put, so you could just make something up.
All right, so at 5 is Roar. Rar. Apologies. Rar was not number 5 on CB's list. They actually were slotted in last. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh.
Just because it's an interesting development.
I think that RAR and NG are pretty much tied for me, but RAR is trending downwards and NG potentially trending upwards. So I was basing it on the fact that RAR obviously had to make some roster changes, and they got O2'd. I guess they're not locked into playoffs either. So I
Nope.
don't know. To me, it was 5 and 6 were tied. I just nudged NG as they
I
showed
think
some glimmers of hope.
I think part of it is because of the trajectories, like you said, because I had RAR at 5, so I'm not. It's not like I'm really throwing you under the bus. We're both pretty low on this team. I think the questions remain.
Who's gonna
At,
play?
we're approaching critical mass of the season. These last 2 weeks are very important for everybody not named Dignawashed, and there's just so many questions, so many possibilities. I'm just not comfortable putting RAR anything higher than 5, which for RAR players might be blasphemous. We'll have to see. They'll have to prove us wrong though, is and their loss against Dig looked pretty rough.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be interesting. It's the two. I feel like we're gonna have somebody that's a big surprise and not make playoffs. It's gonna be weird. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Fourth.
We'll see. Fourth, gonna be the Patriots, showing a lot of promise with some new players. Now it remains to be seen if those players stick around. So much like RAR, kind of tough to put them any higher than this spot. I think unlike RAR, there's some building blocks to go off of. Which, if you're a Patriots fan or player, it would make sense to go the way that I think everybody thinks they're gonna go. But we'll have to see ultimately what they do with their roster.
Yeah, I mean this. If you told me they're gonna make playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me they lost their last 2 games, depending on how they shake up the roster or whatnot, I guess I couldn't be too surprised either. Just depends.
Yep.
Just a lot of question marks around that fourth and fifth team right there.
Number three, top three,
Top three.
but also the middle third. If you're the number 3 spot, it's gonna be Shinobi. Shinobi, kind of a blip in their approach to the season. Dealt with like that emergency sub, like we said. For them, it's probably like put up your hands, say it is what it is. We had a lot going on in that week. Patriots also had a lot going on, so not a lot of scouting prep to make. And so now here is where their season can either strengthen strength their schedule, their resume heading into playoffs, or it could unravel as they have, I believe, Roar and Dig is their remaining two
Yeah, it's
teams in
dig
reverse order.
today. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So tough. Not an easy schedule.
yeah. So Shinobi at 3 makes sense. It's a big couple of weeks for them though, as they have some tougher opponents remaining, depending on what Rar does.
Yeah, I mean thinking about it, all 3 matchups this week are very good watches. Like they all
Yeah.
like it's like I don't know. So all 3 matchups mean a lot for all the teams that are playing. So good thing we're streaming all of them, but wish they could all be. We could just reschedule everything to be live this week, maybe.
Uh, I don't know
You
about
free?
all
You
that,
free?
doing it on the fly. I mean, I'll be there. I
Mm.
just don't know if the teams can do that. Gonna be Eclipse of Valkyries all the way up at number 2. Now, I must say for myself,
Where'd you put him at?
it was I had them at 2.
Oh, okay.
It was a big debate between because Shinobi has the head to head, and I'm not convinced that these two teams played that the outcome would be any different. Um, so there's your Eclipse Valkyries doubt. Um, it's the fact that at this point they've won as many games as RAR has, which is kind of funny to note because they are 1-2. They're just so close. They play up and down to their opponent's level. If they could just break that having to play 3 game streak and pick up a couple 2-0s, this ranking would make a lot more sense for me.
Just trying to get some extra practice in.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't like winning game twos, right? Are they 0-3 in game twos?
yeah.
So we'll see if they can do
Yeah.
it today. I guess we're streaming them today, so we'll see.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just one step away from being a top 2, like for sure team. So
hmm Yeah, I mean for 2 and 3, it was pretty close for me. I don't know about for you, but it makes the most sense as of right now. That means Dignawashed, of course, the last remaining team going to be at number 1. They do have a sub playing this week, so we'll have to see how they do with that. But last time they had a sub, did just fine against Eclipse Valkyries, it should be said. So um, they have all their pieces together. They have a strong game plan. It's pretty clear how they want to approach these games and play around. And so far, nobody's really been able to uh, throw a wrench in that plan, except for one game against EV.
Yeah, we'll see how they handle these next 2 weeks. Obviously, they have playoffs locked in, but they do not have that first seed locked in, which I would argue is very important.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. How do you not put the only undefeated team first?
Yeah, kind of tough to justify. So those are your team rankings. Let us know what we did right, what we did wrong, who we did dirty. I bet there's a couple of RAR fans not very happy with our choices, but it was a tough week last week. What did we do? That means last but not least, going to be our predictions. And if you are a fan of making predictions and want to win a free skin, make sure you're doing your weekly pick'ems. I'm not sure what the rate has been since week 1, how many people are filling them out weekly, but it has been pleasantly surprising to see the what's the word I'm looking for?
Involvement. Oh, that's not.
Yes. Yeah,
Something like
community
that.
involvement, something like that. So we're gonna make our predictions. I'm also gonna pull up hopefully what you guys have said for this upcoming week.
Oh, yeah, you should be able to see it.
But first matchup, Eevee rocking the new threads, the new logo against RAR, who did struggle last week. We don't know who's gonna start for them. So it makes it a tough one, to be honest. This first go.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to predict when you don't really know who's playing, but next split we're gonna fix that. But for this split, it's gonna be unknown for everybody. Obviously, you're gonna just give the other team 10 minutes, so just delay everything. But with us just spitballing who we think is gonna be playing, let's see who we predicted. As I almost caught up after last week.
Yeah, it was a good week for you. Holding on by 2 points. I went 2-1 RAR. I'm of the opinion that we don't see Doki play. If we do, then I'm not gonna get any points this week.
Okay, because I was gonna say, how you put EV at 2 and RAR at 5, and then you bet RAR's gonna beat.
I'm just
EV,
saying.
but
So
it's
power rankings is what
yeah.
has just happened. This is a prediction. I don't think it's gonna be the same roster.
Agree.
But
I also don't
I
think
don't
it's
know.
gonna be the same roster. But since I am high on EV, even if RAR, comes with what we assume to be like the best roster that they can make, I mean, either way, we both think it's gonna go 3 games. I just feel like,
I mean, so far it's 100% rate with EV and going 3 games. So that part
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. So I think EV knows I mean, there's only 2 matches left in the season, so this
Yep.
this is the time to turn it on. So we'll see.
For those of you participating in the pick'ems, sorry, 90% of you think it's going to be EV, 60% thinking it's the 2-1, 30% of you are lost predicting EV 2-0 because we all know it's going to go at least 3 games.
We shall see.
All right, next matchup.
The battle for 6th place.
It could
At
be a
least for this
knockout.
week.
I mean, this is a knockout game for Steel Teammate.
I think so.
If they lose this,
so.
they're out.
I think so. Probably. Yeah. Sure.
Unless I guess if EV loses, no, because EV already has
Already
the
beat
head-to-head.
that head.
Yeah. So yeah, this is EV's final playoff pushes this week.
Steel team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steel team's playoff, and then Patriots don't necessarily have to win this match, but it makes it a lot easier for them to make playoffs if they win this one. So.
All right, CB, who you got?
I'm rocking with Patriots 2-1. Obviously don't know, I guess for either team, who's really going to be playing. as both teams rocked a few subs over the split so far. I think if Patriots run something similar than what they did to what they did last week, they take it. Um, but I don't know. Three games either way, I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I am pulling the upset card. I want to cushion my lead, and if I get this, I can probably pull away. It's gonna be 2-1 NG SEAL Team 8. I refuse to believe that a team will go winless, and I think this is the upset that SEAL Team 8 needs, especially because they just found out they're still in playoff contention, uh, theoretically. They looked good in their win against EV. If they could do more of that and do less of their Game 3 draft, anything's possible for them at this point. So I'm pulling for them to make things spicy. I think it would be a fun last week if they
Mm-hmm.
did get the upset. So there's my prediction. Uh, the majority of you siding with CB. 70% are going with the Patriots, but 30% of you think that SEAL Team 8 can pull it off.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one that we get to see on stream tomorrow. Uh, it's going to be another one. I feel like whoever wins top lane is going to win the game. It'll be an interesting matchup up there between uh, BKs and Andrews, assuming both of those people play.
Yeah, we will have to see. All right, last matchup, because we know you're itching for some Rivals League action. Here are your two teams, Shinobis and Dig,
Both
going
from
at it. Yeah. If you were like me last week, we thought this could be an undefeated matchup coming into week 4. Instead, Shinobi dropped the one against the Patriots. Do they bounce back, or does Dig cement themselves as the number 1 team? Because I believe if they win this, they can't lose that number 1 spot, as they'll have head-to-head for pretty much everybody. I'm going 2-0, Digna washed.
Okay.
I just think they're operating on all cylinders. Millie Bobby Brown struggled against the substitute mid last week. It's another substitute mid. There's plenty of tape to go off of Shinobi to try to attack their weaknesses, and I think Dig can do that.
Okay. Makes sense. I'm still going to take Dig as well. I'm going to take 2-1. I think they could get a little relaxed game 2, knowing that all they have to do is win the match to lock in first seed. So they might get a little spicy in that game 2. Shinobi, of course, obviously doesn't want to lose back-to-back weeks. I still think they can potentially drop out of playoff run depending on a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, Dignawash seems like just the best team in Rivals League right now. So would be silly to bet against them right now.
Community pick'ems say 90% of you think Dignawash is walking away with a win. 50% think it's going to be 2-0. So, I mean, Shinobi can do something awesome heading into this last week, pull that upset. I just don't know if it's going to happen. Those were your power rankings and predictions. That was your episode of Rivals Runback this week. Stick around because we got a matchup coming for you. It's going to be Eclipse Valkyries taking on Roar. We'll be right back after a quick break.